just days away from casting your vote for the next person to lead Norfolk. It's a big change for the city because Mayor Paul Frame held down that job for the last 2 decades.
And now there are 3 men vying for your vote. Tonight, Councilman Andy Protogyrou joins us for an interview. He's been on city council for the last 6 years, helping to reinvigorate Ward's Corner and reduce flooding in the Masons Creek area. Mr. Protogyrou also served as a substitute judge in the city and now works as a lawyer at his own firm.
And we want to thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Oh, no, thank you for having me.
So let's get right to the first question. News that actually broke today. Mayor Frame endorses Kenny Alexander. You know, you worked with Frame for 6 years on council. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my belief is it's so late. Paul had said just a week ago that he wasn't endorsing anyone. And then all of a sudden, the backers of Paul in the past that had already put their money behind Kenny back in October and November must have seen that his numbers aren't as strong as they thought they were, and they needed Paul to come in. And that's why a week ago he was saying, I'm not endorsing anyone. And then today, at the very last second, he has to come in and try to help Kenny out. I mean, it's politics. I understand that, but it doesn't affect me whatsoever.
So you don't see this as, this endorsement as hurting your chances?
No, in fact, it probably helps me.
Why do you say that?
Well, I think there are people who are strong for Paul that had already gone to Kenny or would have been there. The money that Kenny had received primarily had come from many of Paul's backers for months now. So for us, it's people who didn't appreciate Paul and perhaps now come to us. So we see that as only a positive for us. We feel very good about where we are right now.
Okay, and I want to switch topics now. Crime, a big topic, especially over the last couple of weeks. We've had 15 people who have died so far in the city this year, 5 police-involved shootings. You've talked about it before, but explain how you think you can make that change.
Well, keep in mind, anything on council takes 5 of us. And we do have our experts in the chief, and he's told us very recently, and I think you all reported on it earlier today, about that they were going to adjust the way they're doing some of their policing. But all crime really begins at the lowest level, which is simple policing in the neighborhood. We did it around Old Dominion and in that area, and we brought in assets, and bringing those assets in, it's turned it around. And we began that. You did a story, if you may remember. We've turned that area around with more policing in the vicinity, code enforcements that matter, broken windows type of policing matters. So that's one way it appears that our police are going. And as I had asked the chief, I said, if the feds need to come in, if we need to ask them to bring in a certain type of policing, whether it's getting the guns off the street through federal programs, let's do it. Let's make the request. So we maybe need to talk to the Commonwealth Attorney to make that happen and make those types of requests. But the type of crime we're seeing is really a disease. It's systemic. And so we need to examine it like a disease in whole. And if we do that, and we get doctors involved, clinicians involved, and treat it in that manner, and try to get more grant money in that manner, and more policing in that way, then I think we change the whole paradigm. I think it will adjust. But it's going to take some time on that regard.
All right, let's keep moving forward. You know, you've been working in the city for most of your life. How do you think that this really benefits you as opposed to other candidates, perhaps?
In the sense of being on council for the last 6 years?
Sure, and working in the city, being from this city?
Well, what happens is this. When you're at council, as I said, one person can't do anything. It really takes 5 people to turn the ship. And having Tommy Smeagol and Mamie Johnson and Angela Graves behind me and their support and their endorsements, we can make that happen. We can then push our agendas forward. We've had an agenda of reform since we came on. All of us have sought to be reformers. And being a reformer, we can continue that and make it a more open government. And that's really what we're pushing for. So being there and having the experience makes the difference. You just don't walk in and sit down and expect to figure it out. They don't hand you a book and say, here it is. It doesn't work that way. So it really takes the experience to move the city forward.
And really quickly now, we're going to talk quickly about regionalism. How do you see your role as a Norfolk mayor connecting all the cities?
Well, I think that you have to, regionally, it all begins with light rail, and we got it. And other people want it. Some people have been forced to take it, but the Beach Council went with us. So I think that if we examine regionalism in the idea, beginning with the light rail, and we expand it to Chesapeake, which is already in their study, expand it, continued expansion to the beach, that is the heart of regionalism. And getting to know one another matters. Our economic development offices need to know one another. Beyond the mayor level, mayors work together all the time. It's easy. It's one guy calls the other guy up. You call Will Sussums up, you call Alan Krasnoff. You can work that way. But in reality, it's the councils that need to work together. The economic development offices need to work together. And that will be the change.
All right, Election Day, May 3rd.